I still remember the way his hand brushed mine as we walked through the hotel lobby, the warmth of his fingers trailing up my arm when no one was looking. Al had promised this weekend would be just for us. No work calls, no distractions, just time to breathe each other in. But the way he kept pulling me closer, whispering things in my ear when he thought no one could hear, made my pulse race, and made me wonder if someone was watching. Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. The weekend started like something out of a dream. Al had booked a boutique hotel 2 hours outside the city, tucked between rolling hills and quiet woods. The air smelled like rain and cedar, and the whole place felt like it had been waiting for us. I thought it would be just another escape, a chance to reconnect after weeks of barely seeing each other, but from the moment we stepped into our suite, I felt something different in the air. Al, my husband of 4 years, couldn't seem to let go of me. He trailed behind me as I unpacked, wrapping his arms around my waist, his lips brushing the back of my neck in ways that made me forget to breathe. His eyes carried that look I hadn't seen in a while, hungry but soft, like he wanted to memorize me. It should have been perfect. It was perfect, until I started noticing little things that didn't belong. The faint creak of footsteps in the hallway at odd hours. A door closing softly when no one else seemed to be on our floor. The flicker of a shadow beneath our door when Al had gone down to grab drinks. Each time, I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe it was just staff, or another guest. But deep down, something felt wrong, like this weekend wasn't just about us anymore. That first night, while Al was in the shower, I heard it again, a soft knock, 3 quick taps, then silence. I froze by the window, clutching the curtain, my heart racing. When I opened the door a crack, there was no one there. Just the long, empty hallway stretching in both directions. But I could feel it, someone had been standing there. Watching. When Al came out, water dripping from his hair and that familiar grin tugging at his lips, I didn't tell him. Not yet. I didn't want to ruin the moment, not when he finally looked at me like this weekend meant everything. But as he reached for me again, pulling me closer, my eyes kept darting to the door. Because I knew, we weren't alone. Al's arms stayed around me longer than usual, as though he sensed something I wasn't saying. His touch was warm, grounding, but every time his fingers traced along my spine, I couldn't stop glancing toward the door. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe the soft knock earlier was just my imagination, but the chill that lingered in my chest wouldn't leave. The room itself felt too quiet. The kind of silence that makes every creak of the floorboards louder, every gust of wind outside sound like a whisper. The hotel had charm, the kind with velvet drapes and flickering candles on the nightstands, but there was an oldness to it too, a weight, as if the walls had stories they didn't want to share. Al didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't want to admit it. He kept brushing his lips against my shoulder, playful and tender, murmuring how he'd missed being like this with me. His voice made it harder to hold on to the unease, but every time his eyes locked with mine, there was something behind his smile. Something I couldn't read. It had been months since we'd felt close like this. Work, late nights, unspoken arguments, we'd been distant, circling each other in the same house without ever really touching. This weekend was supposed to fix that. I'd told myself if we could just get away, if it could just be the two of us, maybe we'd find our way back to how we used to be. But there was no denying it now, something felt off in this place. While Al poured wine, I wandered toward the window. Beyond the glass, the courtyard below was lit only by a single lamp, its glow flickering like it was about to die. For a second, I thought I saw someone leaning against the far wall, still as stone, staring up at our room. But when I blinked, the figure was gone, swallowed by the shadows. I didn't tell Al. Not yet. Instead, I let him hand me the glass, our fingers brushing. His touch was steady, but my heart wouldn't stop racing. Because even as he kissed me again, slow and warm, my thoughts kept drifting back to the hallway. To the window. to the feeling that we weren't as alone as we thought. The second night, the tension in the room felt heavier. Al was different, warmer, yes, but there was a flicker in his eyes every time I caught him watching me, like something was on his mind that he wasn't ready to say. We spent the evening curled on the velvet couch, the fire crackling low, his hand never leaving mine. But even as he traced circles on my skin, I could feel his thoughts drifting somewhere else. It wasn't just him, though. I couldn't stop replaying the shadow I'd seen the night before, the soft knock, the faint sound of footsteps outside our door when everything should have been quiet. I told myself I was imagining it, but every instinct in me screamed that we weren't alone in this hotel. And maybe it wasn't just fear getting under my skin, maybe it was something deeper. Because every time Al leaned close, every time his lips brushed my cheek, I felt myself drawn to him in a way I hadn't in months. It felt almost dangerous, how much I wanted to forget everything else and sink into this moment with him. But something about his intensity, the way his fingers lingered at my hip, the way his voice dropped low when he whispered my name, made it feel like there was more here than just a husband missing his wife. When he stepped away to grab another bottle of wine from the hall, I finally exhaled, trying to still the storm in my chest. The room felt too big without him, the firelight casting shadows along the walls like figures moving just out of sight. I stood, pacing near the window, and that's when I saw it again. A figure, tall, still, standing near the far end of the courtyard, just inside the glow of the lone lamp. This time, I was sure. Someone was there. Watching. Before I could call out, Al returned. He closed the door quickly, almost too quickly, his jaw tight as if he'd seen something himself. But when our eyes met, he smiled like nothing was wrong, handing me the bottle with a casual, "Here you go, babe." I searched his face for a sign. Was he hiding something, or was it just me unraveling? The air between us shifted. His hand brushed my arm again, slow, deliberate, his eyes dark in the dim light. There was a weight behind his touch, like he needed to hold me close, or maybe like he didn't want me to notice whatever was happening outside that door. And for the first time, I wondered, not just if someone was out there watching us, but if Al knew more about this weekend than he'd told me. The night deepened, and the suite felt smaller with every hour that passed. The flicker of the fire had faded to embers, leaving the room painted in shadows, the kind that move even when you're sure they shouldn't. I sat on the edge of the couch, my legs curled beneath me, wine glass untouched in my hand. Al was pacing, his shoulders tight, his expression soft when he looked at me but hard when he turned away, as if he was wrestling with something I wasn't supposed to see. I wanted to ask what was wrong, to tell him about the figure outside, the feeling of being watched, but my throat felt tight. Instead, we just kept stealing glances at each other, like words were too heavy for this space. His hand brushed against mine when he finally sat beside me, fingers lingering longer than usual, his thumb grazing my skin in a slow, deliberate line. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me, and for a moment, the fear faded, replaced by something far more dangerous, wanting to give in to this closeness, even with the air outside the window feeling heavy, almost charged. Every sound felt amplified, the faint hum of the heater, the creak of the hallway outside, the occasional gust of wind against the window. It was like the entire hotel was holding its breath with us. Al's eyes met mine, his gaze lingering, unspoken questions hanging between us. There was something in that look, a mix of longing and worry, like he wanted to tell me something but couldn't. Or wouldn't. The tension between us was almost unbearable. Every touch, every glance felt loaded, as if the wrong move could shatter whatever fragile moment we were clinging to. My heart pounded when he leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered my name, his voice low, uncertain. The sound of it sent a ripple down my spine, but just as I turned toward him, ready to lose myself in the moment, a faint sound came from the hallway, 3 soft taps, just like before. We froze. His hand tightened around mine, his eyes snapping to the door. Something, or someone, was out there. And whatever was about to happen, we both knew it would change everything. The 3 soft taps echoed through the silence, faint but deliberate, like someone wanted us to know they were there without being seen. My breath caught as my fingers gripped Al's tighter. He didn't move at first. His jaw clenched, eyes locked on the door, his entire body tense. Then, without a word, he stood. Slowly. Carefully. He stepped toward the door, his bare feet silent on the carpet, every movement precise, like he'd been expecting this. My chest tightened as I watched him pause by the peephole, his face tightening in a way I'd never seen before. Al, who is it? My voice barely rose above a whisper. He didn't answer. Instead, he put a finger to his lips and motioned me back. I hesitated, fear crawling up my spine, but something in his eyes, a flash of protectiveness, maybe even guilt, made me step behind him. He turned the handle just enough to peer out into the hallway. I couldn't see who, or what, was there, but the way his shoulders stiffened told me it wasn't just a hotel guest wandering by. When he finally shut the door again, his expression was unreadable. It's nothing, he murmured, forcing a calm tone. Probably a drunk guest messing around. But his hand trembled when he reached for mine, betraying the steady voice he was trying so hard to keep. Before I could press him, the sound came again, this time, from the window. A soft scrape, like a hand dragging along the glass. I spun toward it, my pulse pounding in my ears. The curtains shifted as if something had brushed past them, though the window was locked tight. Al, what's going on? I demanded, my voice shaking despite how hard I tried to keep it steady. He finally looked at me then, his face pale. There's something I didn't tell you, he admitted, his voice low and urgent. This isn't just some random hotel. I knew someone might show up. His eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me, softer now, almost apologetic. I brought you here because I needed to tell you something, but I didn't think it would start like this. The room felt like it tilted beneath me. The shadow outside. The knocks. His constant closeness, the way he wouldn't let me out of his sight, it all suddenly felt connected. Before he could explain, the hallway went silent, then a single knock, louder this time, reverberated through the door. We both froze. And for the first time all weekend, I wasn't sure if I was more afraid of who was on the other side of the door, or of what Al was about to confess. The knock echoed through the suite like a warning, sharp enough to make my pulse stumble. Al's hand hovered over the doorknob, his shoulders squared, his jaw tight. For a moment, I thought he would ignore it. But then he turned to me, eyes shadowed, something heavy behind them. I didn't bring you here just for us, he said finally, voice low, steady but edged with something raw. Someone from my past, they've been trying to reach me. I thought coming here would make it private. Safe. I didn't know it would follow us this far. Before I could process his words, the knock came again, 3 deliberate taps, slower this time, like whoever was out there knew we were listening. My breath caught as Al pulled me close, his arm firm around my waist. I could feel the tension in his grip, his heartbeat racing against mine. He opened the door a crack. The hallway was empty. Only the dim light and the stretch of silence waiting beyond. And then, slid under the door, a single envelope. White. Untouched, but it seemed colder than the rest of the room. Al bent to pick it up, his fingers shaking as he broke the seal. Inside, one line, handwritten in dark ink, "You can't keep her safe if you keep lying to her." I felt the air shift, colder somehow, as he stared at the words. He didn't look at me right away. When he finally did, there was no hiding the truth in his eyes. "Years ago," he said quietly, "before you, I was involved with someone. Someone dangerous. I thought I left it behind. But they found us." His voice dropped lower, almost breaking. "And they don't just want me. They're using us, to pull me back in." The tension snapped like a wire inside me, replaced by a chilling clarity. The knocks, the shadows, the figure outside, they weren't random. They were warnings. Before I could respond, a distant door down the hallway slammed, the echo carrying like a gunshot. We both froze, our eyes locked, the air heavy with what neither of us dared say. And then, softly, almost too faint to hear, came a whisper through the doorframe, "Time's up." The whisper through the door faded into silence, but its weight stayed, hanging in the air like smoke. Al's hand still gripped the note, knuckles white, his eyes darting to the hallway as if expecting someone to emerge from the shadows. I could feel my own pulse in my throat, loud and unsteady, as I slid my hand over his, steadying him, and myself. "Who are they, Al?" My voice was soft, steadier than I felt. He didn't look at me right away. His gaze lingered on the crack beneath the door, then on the fading embers in the fireplace. "Someone I should have told you about," he admitted, his tone low, heavy. "Before we ever got married, before I ever knew you. I made choices. Dangerous ones. I left it behind, but I knew there was a chance it could come back." The room seemed colder, quieter. The old wooden beams above us groaned as a gust of wind rattled the windows. Somewhere beyond the door, a faint shuffle echoed down the hall, but it moved away, growing softer, until only the hum of the heater remained. Al finally turned to me, his eyes clear now, not hiding. "I brought you here to finally tell you everything. To stop letting this hang between us like a shadow." His thumb brushed over my hand, his touch warm despite the chill around us. "I didn't expect this." I searched his face, trying to make sense of it all, the secrecy, the knocks, the figure outside. Anger and fear tangled in my chest, but beneath it, there was something else. The way he'd held me, the way he hadn't let me out of his sight, not out of control, but out of fear. Fear of losing me to whatever still lingered from his past. When the last of the hallway sounds disappeared, we both sat by the window, watching the courtyard below where the lamp flickered one last time before going dark. It felt like a warning, but also a reprieve, like the night was giving us a moment to breathe. Al's arm wrapped around me, pulling me close the way he had when we first arrived, his lips brushing my hair. "I can't change what I did," he murmured, "but I can promise you this. Whatever comes next, we face it together." I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. The unease lingered, shadows still stretching across the walls, but somehow, it felt different now. The fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer felt like it owned us. And as I let my eyes close, remembering the way his hand had first brushed mine in the hotel lobby, the warmth of his touch chasing away the cold, I realized something. This weekend wasn't about running from the shadows. It was about facing them, together, even if someone was still out there watching.